I think that life's trained me to be that way. This is what happens when you've had a varied enough life. I talk often about the importance of trauma as a man. I think that if you were to find the most interesting or most capable men on the planet, they've had the most trauma-filled lives. I just think that trauma is what teaches you. We talked earlier about how you have to have lessons taught to you the hardest way. If you were to call a Navy SEAL and ask him to protect you going into a building full of assailants, you'd like to think that guy's been through some stuff. You'd like to see some scars, right? You wouldn't want Mr. Freshface to turn up. This is the reason why we instinctively don't trust youth. Because you look at a kid, if a wealth manager walks in and he's 18, you're like, oh, you don't know about life. Nothing's hurt you yet. That's why we trust age. That's why they say that wisdom you must grow into wisdom. You can't just pick it up, right? Trust your elders, listen to your elders, etc. These are age-old ways of thinking. So lessons and trauma, and the more you go through, the better of a man you are. And if you were to find the best men on the planet, I guarantee they've been through a bunch of terrible things. And if you listen to podcasts from any of the most interesting people on the planet, usually they've had hard, terrible lives. And you can use that trauma to become a better person, or you can let that trauma consume you and destroy you. But I thank God for all of it, because it gave me endless power to become the person I am. If you're truly angry or truly unhappy, then you can't sleep. And if you can't sleep, then you get twice as many hours as everybody else to become monumentally successful. So there's advantages. There's advantages to difficult things.
And what is the biggest trauma that's taught you the most?
I've thought long and hard about which stories I'm prepared to share on social media, which ones I'm not. And that line's getting more and more blurred. I'm starting to give more and more away. And there's certain things I don't want to say. And I'm certainly not looking for any degree of sympathy, because like I said, I am glad for everything that happened to me. I wouldn't change a thing. I thank God for all of it. So truthfully, I think I'm lucky, I've been blessed. The reason I talk about these things is not to tell people I've had a hard life. It's to make it clear to people who are complaining about their own lives that the bad things that are happening to you are what you need to become the man that you want to be. I can't talk about women because I'm not one. I actually think trauma is terrible for women because it masculinizes them. They become cold, and that's not attractive, right? We want feminine, pure, protected women. I don't want a woman to ever go through anything bad in her life. I think a man should go through it for her and protect her, because I think that's how she's her best self as a woman. But I think to be your best self as a man is the absolute opposite. And when someone emails me and says, "This has happened to me," I'm like, good. No, what do you mean good? It's terrible. How else are you going to become important? How else are you going to find endless fire to get up and struggle in the face of the competition that's out here in the world? How else are you're going to do all that with a nice, cushy life? If any man's honest with himself, think about the biggest transformative stages in your life. Think about the times you got the most work done. It was a bad part of your life. You were heartbroken, or you lost a house, or broke, or whatever. That's when you did shit. When everything was fine, when the woman's still sucking dick, the mortgage is paid, dinner's on time, it's kind of doop-de-doop-de-doo, little by little, do a little bit of work, do a little bit of relax. But the big events come from trauma. This is it. So it's a cheat code. It's a cheat code to climb the mountain. So when I get a message from whoever and he goes, "My wife left me, I'm devastated," I say, I understand. I completely understand how hard it can be to lose a woman that you've given your entire life to. And you've done so many nice things. And then because of one thing you did, her innate and absolutely insane level of ungratefulness has turned her bitter, and she now talks to you like she hates you over one thing you've done after thousands of efforts showing how dedicated you are to her. And even now that you're prepared to die for her, she doesn't give a shit about you. I understand that pain. But my answer is, good, it's still good. Now take all of that pain, and instead of emailing me, do this. And then you're gonna become the kind of person that women don't leave. Then you win.
Andrew, I've got to do my job here.
Sure.
I don't want to do this because I'm really enjoying this. I've got to do my job. I want to push you for one specific example of something that was traumatic to you. Maybe something in your childhood or something. Because there's still a wall there where you haven't given us anything that's really hurt you.
Oh, completely, yeah, I haven't answered. So, I have a whole bunch of things, but I can give you a simple one that I've talked about already before. And this is one that everyone can relate to. Losing my father was bad. Me and my father were exceptionally close. But it's a natural part of human evolution. As you grow, you're going to lose your parents. This is what happens, right? It's going to suck, but the only alternative is that you die before them, and I think that's worse because it's unnatural, right? And there's an African proverb that says you don't become a man until your father dies, and I can confirm that to be true.
That is my biggest fear in life. What I know is coming, not, you know.
It's coming.
Yeah.
And it's sudden, and it's instant, and it's brutal.
Yeah.
And, but all the trauma, like all of the pain associated with that experience, it taught me at least, I all of a sudden almost remembered every conversation I ever had with him. Like I was talking to the guy every day, right?
How old were you when that happened?
27.
Yeah.
I was talking to the guy all the time. But once he's gone, you remember all the times he was right and you didn't quite understand. All the times he was saying things you didn't quite get. All the times you talked back and you were absolutely and utterly incorrect. You're like, oh shit, I've been wrong this whole time, right? So it teaches you a whole bunch about yourself. And it also, for me, what it did was make it clear to me that I'm no longer a student and it's time to become a teacher.
Yeah.
And also, my scenario with my father was very unique because he was the only person on the planet I allowed to check my thinking. Even at the age of 25, 26, I had asked my dad if I was right. I didn't give a shit what anybody else said. You could get 20,000 people in a room saying, Andrew, you're wrong. Didn't care. But if my dad said I was wrong, shit, I was wrong. So once he wasn't around to check my thinking, I had to check my own thinking a lot harder, a lot more carefully. So yeah, I mean, that was a terrible experience. I miss him like the deserts miss the rain, but that's his life, right? The only alternative is worse. I don't think he would have been able to actually function if he lost me. So this is how it goes, and it's coming for all of us. What's actually kind of amazing is he is mentioned and talked about now so often on the internet because of my massive fame. So I've kept him alive. By becoming so successful, people are interested in my origin, which makes people talk about him. So it's kind of like, if you have a duty to your bloodline and a duty to your ancestors and you truly love your parents, how can you still be sitting at home playing video games being a lazy piece of shit? Don't you want people to remember them? Don't you want people to think, wow, who's this person who raised this amazing person? So that in and of itself, it should be endless motivation. If anyone's watching this, if you love your parents, you can't be a loser anymore. Like, otherwise they're going to be forgotten along with you, you know? So, but yeah, it's coming.
But we're all going to be forgotten in the end.
Perhaps, but there can be different, perhaps this is true, but there will be different evolutions of fables. There are still stories we tell from 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. And I tell the story of my father, and my son will tell the story of me, and his son will tell the story of him. And we will all be so influential that the name Tate will live forever. And this is what gave me solace. But this solace that you find after your father's passing, that solace for me also gave me a massive sense of responsibility and duty. I can't now not be who I am, which goes back to earlier when you were saying, well, they're gonna get you. How do you sleep at night? Because I can't not do this, because by doing this, my father is remembered, and I will be remembered, and my son will be born and instilled with a sense of duty, which will make him impossible to program by the Matrix, so I know my son will be a good person. He won't be a piece of shit like all these other children. He will be born with morality, and he will understand that his father sacrificed himself for the good of the world. So yes, I don't like being alone in a dark car park, of course. But also, what's the alternative? To say, Dad, sorry, they offered me some money. Is that the alternative? I don't know. But maybe some people can sign up for that, but I certainly can't.
Do you have something to prove?
I think everybody on the planet has something to prove. If you walk through life and feel like you have nothing to prove, then you're a fucking loser. If you wake up each day and go, I don't owe anybody anything, I don't have to prove anything to anybody, then you are a loser because you are absolutely not incorrect. You must prove yourself to other people. You must prove yourself to your bloodline, as we just discussed. You must prove yourself to God. God hates the lazy. He can't stand them. If he gives you all these genetic dispositions and these natural God-given gifts, if you have 2 arms and 2 legs and you can think, and you're not trying your absolute best, that's the reason you're not lucky. He doesn't like you. He likes the people which show him the beauty of his own creation. He likes to give somebody building blocks and them to build something amazing. It's the best thing about being a man. You get to build who you are, right? You can decide if you want to be a funny comedian or a musician or a kickboxing world champion or fight the Matrix. You can decide whatever you want to be. God loves to see that. Those people, for some reason, seem to be enormously lucky, right? The person who goes, I don't have to prove anything to God. I don't owe all of my ancestors any effort. You know, for 5,000 years, people were dodging saber-toothed tigers and catching the plague and running from Genghis Khan just for my stupid ass to be born. I don't owe them anything. I don't owe them a thing because I want to play video games. These people are fucking losers. You should walk through Earth with force inside of you. As I walked into this hotel reception, everybody looked. Not because they know who I am, but because as I move, even if it's behind their head, people feel something and they go, it's an energy that comes from brutal competence. It's almost like an evolutionary thing where a rabbit can just smell a fox. It just knows. That's what happens when a predator walks in a room, even amongst humans. You pay attention next time you're in a restaurant. If a man who's truly dangerous walks in, nearly every other man kind of looks up at the same time. You feel it. You need to or you don't survive. We've evolved with that to live. That's who I am. I couldn't imagine not being that man. I've done that because I've been trying to prove myself to my lineage my entire life. I wake up every day with something to prove. I have hundreds of millions of dollars. I wake up and think, fuck, more. I'm in fantastic shape, 4 times world champion. Fighting the Matrix out here by myself, more. I will have to be braver. I must try harder. All I do is prove myself. So when I hear people go, I don't have nothing to prove, then you're a fucking loser. Peasants have never felt like they needed to prove anything. But kings felt like they needed to go and conquer land. Isn't that it's coincidental that the king, who already had it all, felt like he needed to go to some far-flung land and conquer it and take it and prove he's the king. But the peasants, oh, I don't have to prove nothing to nobody. You're a fucking loser then. You're a dummy. I absolutely and utterly, completely have everything to prove to everybody all of the time. That's who I am. I will prove anything to anybody. If I sit and say X, I will prove it to anyone. I can be checked at any time. If someone would have come up to me in that lobby and argued with my ideas, I would have proved that my ideas are sound. If they would have attacked me, I would have destroyed them completely and absolutely. That's who I am. So yes, I have a lot to prove, my friend. And until the day I die, it will remain.